Welcome back to another Value Bite. We are excited to continue our journey where we're talking to owners, giving feedback, tips, insights, and their perspective about all things vision and beyond. And today, I'm really excited. We have Phil here with us. And Phil, I want to toss it over to you to kind of introduce yourself. I know your career in financial services has been nothing short of impressive, working with Fortune 100 companies and now at the helm of Valor Financial Specialists. So tell us a little bit more about Valor and really what sets your agency apart from others in the insurance world.
Sure, and I appreciate the time. The big thing that I would say is that yeah, I've been in the industry for 18 years. I've worked with financial advisors as a wholesaler, FINRA license, so I can technically sell stocks, bonds, mutual funds, but I opt not to because I think there's a bigger mission at hand. There's 330 million people in the United States, half of which have no insurance at all. That includes group insurance. And so, working for insurance companies like MetLife, like AIG, got to learn the other side of the fence and also had the ability to learn how different people would set up their organizations. So, stepping out 2.5 years ago and creating Valor Financial Specialists, the whole goal was really for me to provide a wonderland of opportunity for my agents in regards to doing good for your community, and then ultimately your community will do good for you. So it's just simple economics. If you do the right thing, people will want to work with you. And so the whole goal was to build these silos of opportunities. So insurance-based solutions, life insurance, disability, long-term care, retirement plans like annuities, SEP plans, 401ks for business owners and things like that. Silo number two, we created something for Affordable Care Act and Medicare. And then silo number three, we actually offer, private equity deals, stuff like that, that's backed by land, secured by land, and ultimately something that allows a financial professional who doesn't want to get FINRA licensed opportunities to still give their customers different ways to meet them for their retirement goals. Ultimately, I like to say this when I talk to clients is that our goal is to help protect you along the way in case something happens. Ultimately, reaching that retirement goal, we want you to retire the way that you deserve to rather than the way the government tells you to. And then once you've made enough money to heat up your great grandkids' pools for the rest of their lives, we want to try and legally and ethically find a way to keep that from the government. So that's the ultimate goal, and we have just different ways to do it. Ultimately, in 18 years of doing this, no client has had the exact same path. So it's always about asking a lot of questions and finding the right opportunities.
I mean, who doesn't want a heated pool? So, I mean, all good things.
So I say,
I
so I
think
say,
hearing about what you've built and really the diversity and flexibility and how you're working with folks. One of the things
Mhm.
that you've shared is also just the nationwide network of agents that you have. And, when I think about that, I think about how you've clearly scaled your vision
Yep.
when you're looking at the footprint that you've already built. So when you think about your why and your vision behind Valor and what you're building, how does
Mhm.
that why and that vision guide your business decisions today?
That's a really good question because I've kind of tiptoed around it for the last couple of years. I have about 220 agents across the country with an aggressive goal for next year to 10x that. But what I've seen in this industry is you have two segments of ways of doing business. One is your traditional brokerage model, where you have these typical crusty old white guys who are like in their 60s and 70s, and no one is really replacing them in the insurance industry. On the flip side, you have these multi-level marketing groups of a bunch of people who are seeking opportunity to get to the top of the pyramid and then have a bunch of people below them selling stuff so they can make this generational wealth. And what's happened is that they've latched onto the insurance industry because it is a financial product that doesn't require a lot of scrutiny from FINRA and things like that. And so what I find is that you have people who did it right but aren't really, still in that hustle phase anymore. You have people who are in that hustle phase that are getting educated by people who don't know how to do it right. And I'm generalizing, don't get me wrong, there are plenty of people in different of those organizations who know what they're doing. But for the most part, I've seen worst versus best. And I want to make a change on that. So when I built and created this system, and I've said this phrase before, the life insurance industry is a noble profession. Everybody needs it or some form of it. But because there are so many tricks and schemes to get people into the industry, then people suddenly are leery about it, either from a purchase standpoint or just jumping into it. So the goal is to provide transparency, consistent training, and ultimately the ability to grow the network. And I'm doing that through a strategic partnership plan.
Mhm.
Uh, as I mentioned, 220 agents, California, Connecticut, and South. But now I'm going to be creating these almost like wholesalers. I call them RISE partners, regional insurance solutions executives that will help complement the conversation across the industry and provide that value proposition to get to more people. So basically taking all my knowledge, all my information and sharing it from a team perspective. So that's the whole goal to help us grow and expand. And we'll be advertising a lot of that in the future, just to kind of share that vision and growth and really just get the protection that people need in the industry that they've really been missing. And that's the big thing.
So it sounds like you've really set up a trajectory for there to be education and resources from the
Mhm.
top down. And
Yeah.
so obviously your agents and your clients having access to that sounds like it's a core part of how you function, what you value in the way that you're
Yep.
going about things. But also just the vision itself is critical. So when you're thinking about, or when you work with owners or your agents that are
Mhm.
wanting something bigger, they have that training, they have that expertise coming from what y'all do, but how do you help them identify that vision so that
Yep.
they can tap into these tools, but that why and that vision, right? That's the exciting and the momentum and the purpose. So what
Yep.
is it that you do and how do you help others identify that?
Yep. So in our industry, it's about stories and, the impact of the stories and the situations that lead to reaction. And I'll give you a good example. I know people who are in their 40s who have stage 4 cancer. I know someone who's 27 who was diagnosed with breast cancer. And the things like that are the things that scare me. So I know there are people who can relate to these situations. Fast forward to later on in life, I know for a fact, my mom had to take care of my grandmother when she was Medicaid for long-term care, and ultimately the last words she said to her mom were just go to bed and slam the door behind her, not realizing she'd pass away that night. So when you think about these things, these stories, they invoke emotion. Emotion leads to action. And ultimately, we collectively, for the most part, don't want to see other people suffer, right? I hope. And so if we can offer that value in that conversation through stories to get people to move, whether it's even in this industry or just to purchase insurance in general, or help people with retirement and things like that. There's different stories on that side too. That helps invoke a conversation to either bring someone to the table for getting coverage or getting into the industry if they feel like they want to make a little extra money, Side hustle is usually how people start in this industry, but you usually have someone who's full time to help you guide through that process. And so my job is top down to guide the people at the top to help train those people who want to get into the industry, who are hungry for it. But I will say counterculture to a lot of what people do in these marketing organizations is they'll say, "Hey, you got a pulse. You want to come in and do this? It only costs you $500." And you sit there and you try and drag them through this whole process. And I tell people all the time, I was like, I have a appointment booking tool with 30-minute calls, 60-minute calls, 30-minute Zoom, 60-minute Zoom. I'll meet anybody's hustle. I'll match it. Don't worry. But I'm not going to reach out and say, "Hey, you haven't done anything. You need to do something," because if there's no motivation or excitement there, it's not my job to create that inside you. It's my job to give you ideas, solutions, and strategies. And if you can marry that with a client or someone you can think of, then we're off to the races. But if I'm going to do all the work for you and you're just going to sit there and hope that you get some money for me doing all the work, this is not the right place for you.
Finding that balance of someone that values the tools and the resources, but
Yep.
also has identified their own vision story or those stories that they connect with, like you shared in the beginning, to really
Yep.
help them get up and find that why. That in the way that we work when we're building marketing strategies for primarily B2B owners,
Yep.
finding that vision story is such a core part about it because at the end of the day, your business, whether you're an agent or a traditional business owner, whatever that looks like, it's emotional. You're getting up, you're
Always.
spending your time, and this idea that like personal and professional is so segmented is kind of old hat. Like we're all about like integrated. There's an integrated personal professional vision, and it's not just because I fall in the millennial category. It's literally because it's what works now.
Yep.
And so that's one of the things we really work hard on is identifying, okay, hitting that 10 million in revenue, that million in revenue, that is not your vision. Helping, 100 people get life insurance, that is not your vision. What is that why? It's because you want to be able to take care of your family, retire
Yep.
your spouse, or see those people be able to accomplish their own vision because they have life insurance. So
Yep.
that really the vision story, whether it's your own or being motivated by someone else's, a role model, so on and so forth, that is
Mhm.
you speak in our language over here. And I think sometimes we overlook it because it's
Yeah,
like woo woo. It's like, it's not woo woo. You're emotional about your business.
I
So,
love it.
I
I
get
love
that.
it.
So, okay. So as we're getting into 2025, what should agents and business owners
Mhm.
focus on to ensure they're prepared for the challenges and opportunities ahead? It's a great, like, you can restart anytime, in my opinion, but
Yep.
traditionally, beginning of the year, Q1, what are we going to do?
So it starts out with a plan. Having no plan is still a plan. It's just a really bad plan. So, what is your money goal for the year? So, if you have a money goal, let's say you want to hit $1 million in net income, whatever it may be. How many conversations do you have to, or how many cases do you have to place to get to that? How many people do you have to talk to submit applications to get to that number? And you work your way back. And that leads to daily goals, right? The hardest part about business ownership and what I've found is that everyone has that vision, but a lot of times it becomes controlled chaos. So what happens is you start your day with this goal in mind. You have like five things you want to complete, and none of them get done because you open up your emails and everything just goes to
I don't know
managing and
why
paying the
you're
files.
talking about me. I'm not sure. I'm not sure I'm comfortable with being called out right
Oh,
now.
I feel violated, but it's true. And we saw a statistic for business owners, 86% of business owners have no retirement plan because they
Mm-mm.
focus on their retirement. When it goes from generation one to generation two, 12% are successful, and then generation two to generation three, about 3% are successful after that.
Wow.
So the question is what do you talk about for business succession? What are you talking about from the standpoint of kicking out unwanted ownership? What are you talking about from retirement perspectives? And all of these can be provided through guidance, through conversations with financial professionals like myself and other people in our realm, because a lot of people are seeming to forget that yes, you matter to your organization, but at the end of the day, if you're not surrounding yourself with other people who can handle it in case you're not around, what's going to happen to that organization? So you think of business expenses for protecting the business, you think of personal expenses to protect the person, but then you can also think of ways to retaining key employees. We have ways and strategies to do stuff like that too. And ultimately, the end goal is what do you want from your business? That's the end goal for every year, but it's also the end goal of what do you want for your business in whole? Is it to leave a legacy? Is it to just fill a void so you can give money to your family and live and have those heated pools, that you dream of, or the beach house that my CFO constantly talks about, being my wife. And so stuff like that is really at the end of the day what people are often tasked with. But I found that I've taken the last 2 months from really going out and visiting people to just sit back and ultimately figure out the next steps for Valor, because it's going to be a great growth trajectory. And I want to surround myself with people, like-minded individuals who can really guide and go through that process too. And ultimately turn this into something that's going to be big, where at this point money doesn't matter to me. It is about legacy. So can I make a change in the industry that will resonate for a long period of time in a good way, not a bad way, but in a good way? Can I create a change in the industry that adds value, and ultimately we see a better outcome from it? So that's really when it boils down to it, the ultimate goal, in my opinion, which leads me to drive for success, which leads me to drive for more people to partner with, which leads to more customers hearing the same value proposition and the ultimate goal. So that's sorry, I was a regional vice president, so I used to get paid by the word, so I get a little verbose, but that's really the excitement that I have for this type of industry and opportunity. People don't realize that our services are needed more than expected, and it just shows time and time again.
I really value and admire what you're saying as far as like you've moved out of it's not money, it's not that's not really what is the motivation. And maybe at one point it was, and absolutely there's nothing wrong with that. I mean, because I think even on my end, like when I look at, well, over in the work that we do in the strategy world, our process, we utilize a process called PIT that we've created internally. And so it's people, impact, process, or profit. And so, this idea of they're all important, but if you have limited time and limited resources, how would you rank your pit? What's going to come
Mm,
first? What are you going to protect first? How can you use what you care about most, what you want to protect most as a decision making tool? And so
yeah,
hearing you talk, it's like, well, for you, it's impact. Like you're wanting to make an impact in your industry above all else. And so that doesn't mean that profit's not important. That doesn't mean that I mean, you got to have good profit and revenue to run a successful business. So obviously that's important.
yeah.
But as you're navigating things and bringing in the team or creating this expansion, these growth ideas, making sure that you're doing it in a way that ultimately results in the impact you want to have on your industry, that's what's you're gonna protect at all odds. And so I think that's really cool.
Yeah, I'd say impact is the best way to put it, because profit will be a byproduct of impact. So if you can create an impact with people, that emotional connection, then it'll go from there. And you know, kind of talking about one of the programs I made called the Great Collaboration, where we brought a bunch of people together from different insurance companies, agencies, and whatever to talk about, yeah, there's stuff about Valor in there. If you want to work with Valor in different ways, you can. But there were also sales ideas to say, hey, I don't want you to waste your time here. I want you to at least walk away with something that can add value to your practice. And so, one of my mentors has said this, and I think it's a great saying. People at the bottom compete, but people at the top collaborate.
Mm,
And so when you think about that, if you can find and surround yourself with like-minded individuals, understanding that you get more together than you do apart, um, because people just have to realize that, you're always going to have someone who's like, oh, they're going to take my business, they're going to take my business. But if you come from a place where you can collaborate, you'll go farther than you would by competing. And I think that's why I'm so excited about the idea of the impact of sharing it with multiple people so that we can all get on the same page, work together, win together,
mhm.
and just, using the cliche of rising tides raise all ships, we're all going to win together.
Hey, cliches are cliches for a reason. They work.
Yep.
But yeah, I think that mindset of collaboration and coming out of abundance, it's such a quick checks and balance, at least on our end, to find our people. Because it's like if
Yep.
you're functioning out of there's a difference in like healthy competition to get things going, like that
Yep.
contest vibe. Like I'm all for that. We always joke in my team, like if I don't hit my KPIs when we get together for our team meeting, like it's my own personal win or fail, but I'm like, I'm going to win this week. And the week that I don't win, right? Like I don't like it. So, like, that's okay. But it's when you're being in this mindset of not thinking abundantly and not being collaborative, it's such a missed opportunity. I feel like it's a very old school way of thinking, like as if there's not enough, especially in, I think, highly competitive industries, which insurance, right, is one of those. So
Yep.
I really admire that that's one of the impacts that you're trying to have with what you're doing. So, okay, before we move on to like our last tips and tricks, what would you, I have to know, what would you say is one of the biggest trends or shifts that you would foresee in the financial services industry, just outside of that transparency, that education, the impact you're wanting to have? What would you see as that biggest trend or shift?
So the interesting thing about our industry is everything changes.
Mm-hmm.
So it changes all the time. There were that's why I like it. The only consistent in the insurance industry is change. You have to monitor what the feds are doing. You have to monitor what other um, investment products are doing and stuff like that. Right now, the big shift is to Bitcoin and altcoins, so to speak. So, is that a consistent? Is that going to stay? Is that going to go? What I found is what was tried and true is always going to be the best way to go, and that's balance any type of portfolio that you have.
Mm-hmm.
So some people, like in certain organizations, will say, hey, everything else is crap because they can't sell it. My vision and goal was always there's always going to be other things, but if you diversify your portfolio, put some over here, put some over there, then you're not getting cussed out by your consumer. And you're really covering your own what when it comes to all the stuff that changes in the industry.
Mm-hmm.
So when it boils down to it, you're going to see probably a shift towards more aggressive portfolios because they think with Team Red coming back in office, all things are going to change. But then you have other people on the other side who are like, the world is going to end. And so there's, like a squirrel, gathering all their nuts for winter to protect themselves. So what I would say is everyone has to find a fine balance. I even said it during COVID to my wife. I said, when people are all flocking towards something, that's when you should pull back. When people are, pulling back, that's when you should be a bit more aggressive. And during COVID, we were like, all right, what can we do, ethically speaking, to get forward as opposed to staying neutral. And so we almost bought a house down in the panhandle of Florida, or as we like to call it, the Redneck Riviera. And I regret it that we didn't buy it because it was like 600,000. And then that was October of 2020. April of 21, it was up to about $1 million.
Wow.
And I was like, man, we could have, sold that for a quick buck, paid off our house and all this other stuff. And so what I say with all that is that, when it comes to trends and changes, you have to, be okay with some changes, but on the same token, kind of remember that you have to center yourself with some of the conservative side, and that's where we kind of land on our products. So it's really more on the conservative side. I like to call it an aggressive conservative. So again, long-winded answer to say that, stay the course. There's always going to be stuff that's coming out that people will want to change to, but in essence, it's not always the right thing to do.
I really hear you saying too that it goes back to one of the original suggestions you made for folks going into 2025, which is having a plan, and having that
Yep.
plan is kind of that checks and balance, that guidepost, so that when these trends or potential opportunities come up, there's a place to refer back to kind of say, okay, does this get us closer, or is it really going to derail us if it doesn't work to our favor? And so I think that kind of goes full circle. Okay, so
Yeah.
last question. We're going to leave with one piece of advice that you would give business owners and agents who are
Mhm.
wanting to make a bigger impact in their career and their lives. What's that one piece of advice?
Uh, well, I mean, really, I would say that one piece of advice is there's nothing wrong with having mentorship.
Mm.
A lot of people think that they're alone in their respective organization or respective situation. Abundance comes from collaboration, growth, having a mind share and a community. So if you're looking for the right type of community in the insurance industry, I'd like to say, bar none, we have a great conversation around that and would love to share that. For business owners, a lot of business owners know each other, talk to each other, like-minded industries and things like that. Some may be competitive, but for the most part, find a mentor, someone who you can bounce ideas off of that you feel comfortable with. Could be your spouse, could be, a good friend who's also, a business owner, whatever. But I think everyone needs that community and understanding that they're not alone is a big thing. We as humans in general don't want to be alone. Despite what some people say, you always seek some type of community.
Agreed. I agree. I don't think we're built to be alone.
Right on.
All right. Well, Phil, thank you so much for taking time to come on Value Bites. So, if people wanted to connect with you and learn more about Valor Financial, what would be the best way to do so?
Yep. So on my website, I actually have two websites in one spot. So if you went to www.valorfinancialspecialists, plural, specialists.com, there's a spot that says, for business professionals, which we have for agents looking for a home. We also have a spot for consumers looking to see the different strategies and opportunities that we offer. Tag handles online at Valor Financial is the ones that I have for Instagram and for YouTube. So agents looking for a bunch of trainings, I have like 80 plus videos on there of prior trainings. They all get posted there after my Thursday training sessions. And then on Facebook, it should also be at Valor Financial. You'll see a little blue with a V, a gold V in it. So that's me. But other than that, emails, texts, whatever, if anyone ever wants that, you can get it on my website.
Perfect. Thanks again, Phil. Appreciate your insight and perspective. And we will chat with you again soon in the future.
All right. Have a great day.